We're going to go and cover DraftKings now for a first look at Week 10. Basically covered a lot of what we did with FanDuel, so this one's going to be a little bit shorter and a little bit cleaner. And I think that things are pretty straightforward on DraftKings this week. The running back position is pretty interesting. It's way too early on Wednesday to kind of figure out what we want to do exactly, but I'm very curious to see what that tight end position looks like, as well as what the wide receiver position looks like at the top of things. So let's go ahead and get started here. This is really simple. I think you're just playing Justin Fields and calling it a day at 6,500. He was, 5,300 last week and 40% owned in cash. Everybody's going to play it this week. That's totally fine. In tournaments, there are some decent pivots, I think. One being Daniel Jones at 5,700. I'm not going to spend too much time on Fields. I think that's a pretty big layup there. Tua, I think Patrick Mahomes paying up if you want to at 7,900 is interesting. Jared Goff against Chicago. We didn't talk about him earlier, but that's an interesting spot if Detroit... Jared Goff just needs the passing touchdowns to go his way. I know that the yardage can suck, but he does have, look at this. I mean, he's got a 37 burger in him. Like, I know that that's going to be probably his best game of the season, but he does have the ability to throw for 250 and 2, 250 and 3, and not going to give you too much on the ground, but I do think that Jared Goff can make something worthwhile for a tournament on DraftKings. But in terms of cash, it's obviously Fields or bust. I'm just trying to poke holes in anything that I see here. Like we mentioned Jacoby, or Kai did. I think that's an interesting spot. We'll see who gets the start for New Orleans. I don't think Winston's good enough to go here. I think he's still dealing with a back injury, but maybe there's a little bit more interest there if he's the one that's going to be able to start. Other than that, though, I don't think it's worth paying for Keenum on DraftKings. FanDuel would be the only reason I would say go there, and I don't even know if I like that much. So again, small slate, smaller player pool of guys. With Josh Allen hurt, this really just makes this Fields play like 60-70% plus owned in cash, which, say what you want about ownership. I actually think it's all right. Saquon Barkley to lead the thing off for the running back position, 8,600. That's a really, really genuine price tag. I think that's way too low. He should be in the 9Ks. The volume's going to be there. The pass game work should be there. This seems like a 2-touchdown, 3-touchdown day for Saquon. Don't mind that whatsoever. Derrick Henry is going to be a nice pivot off of that. The dude has just been unbelievable. I think both Henry and Chubb are guys that get overlooked this weekend, and the volume is just incredible, right? Like, there's really not much more we need to say about either of them at this point. So I think Henry and Chubb are awesome pivots off of Saquon Barkley, but Barkley would be my preferred option in cash games. We'll see if Jonathan Taylor goes this week. If he does, that's actually kind of interesting. So that kind of just brings up the fact of, just because Sam Ehlinger is the quarterback, does that really mean that we can stay away from Taylor? I think you can actually kind of play him, especially if whoever's calling the plays this week for Indianapolis is going to go heavy with Jonathan Taylor in the run game. I could actually see that being a thing. So keep an eye on Jonathan Taylor's status this week. I think Josh Jacobs is also interesting in the same game. Kamara's passing game upside is honestly hit or miss at this point. I'm not really sure what more to say about that. Travis Etienne comes in too cheap. We talked about him on FanDuel. Like him a lot on DraftKings to 7,100. Brings a lot to the table. Again, personally, I wish that he has a little bit more passing game work, and that should be on full display here. Keep an eye on Aaron Jones as well. A.J. Dillon. DraftKings was able to get the price tag bumped up to where it makes not as good of a value play, but again, we're not complaining at that spot. Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott. This one's a little bit more interesting. I know that it's closer than it appears, but 6,500 for Pollard, 6K for Zeke. I would assume Zeke is good to go here, but we'll just have to wait and see. So going back to the Dameon Pierce point, this is where things get really interesting. I think that he actually is a strong play here. I know it's against New York, and I know that they're on the road. They're going to be behind. I could see Dameon Pierce paying off his price tag on DraftKings and much more. He does need the end zone, but I do think that this is a really solid spot for him, where on FanDuel, I think it's more of a tournament play. Everybody else in this range, Jamal Williams stands out at 5,900 as we scroll down here. So I think that's as we learn a little bit more about the DeAndre Swift stuff, we should be able to find out whether or not Jamal Williams is going to be a clear workhorse. And I'm just going to go ahead and look at the volume that he had last week and say it's pretty much the case, I think. 24 touches on the ground for Jamal Williams. That's probably going to be as inefficient as he's going to have all season. Other options here. Again, Montgomery, Khalil Herbert in that same game make for great tournament leverage pieces off of Justin Fields. Just as a first look, I think that there's not this range is not as juicy as I thought it was going to be. Other players in this range, Devin Singletary at 56. It's a little bit overpriced compared to his FanDuel output. Jeff Wilson, interesting spot there, but if he's going to be splitting duties with Raheem Mostert, then is it really that viable? Not sure. Najee Harris is all the way at 5,500 now. This is just atrocious at this point. Everything else is meh, honestly. If we get a situation where Jonathan Taylor's out and Deion Jackson is back in, I know we got hurt in the last game, but 5,400 is all right. There's actually not too many running back plays that I really like this week. Yeah, scrolling down, I don't love anything. Nope. Okay, let's move on to wide receiver. It's gonna be a fun GPP show this week, guys. But cash games, things look pretty void as of Wednesday, unless we get some injury news. Tyreek Hill 9,100, Cooper Kupp 9K, both those guys up at the 9K range. You have Jefferson, Adams, Diggs, and Hopkins at the 8K range. Waddle, Lamb, the only 7K players. Diggs' price tag is nice. I think that DeAndre Hopkins actually makes some of the most sense. And that feels weird to say. But between, I never really know what to do with Adams on this Raiders team because it looked great in the first quarter, right? Or first half of last game, but then literally zilch after that. So I think that this is all well and good, but I'd probably lean with Justin Jefferson or DeAndre Hopkins, potentially Jalen Waddle. Let's take a look at Hopkins really quick. I know that the Rams are not the best team to throw against. This was actually really disappointing. 5 targets, although he did get the touchdown. If the Cardinals want to win, they have to pass the ball. And I just feel like DeAndre Hopkins should be in a bounce-back spot to get a little bit more on the target side of things. So I don't mind that at 8,000 even. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6,900. Feels a little bit too expensive now. That it's I've been playing cash games for a very long time, going on 6 years now, and it's just one of those things where I don't know if that's the best price tag to have him at. He was 66 last week and didn't really pay that off. Chris Olave 68, it's getting up there as well, still viable though. Amari Cooper home road splits concern me, but I do like the price tag 6,500. Gabe Davis just doesn't have the target share. I think he's had more than 3 targets once in this entire season. Allen Lazard makes for a good cash game play at 6,100, knowing that there's just not going to be any receiver help in this spot. Juju Smith-Schuster's price tag looks solid. Christian Kirk is solid here. I have some more interest in Denver here where I didn't as much on FanDuel. Adam Thielen at 5,400 is very solid. Rondale Moore is an interesting tournament play. We get down the line here. Maybe you want to take a shot at Chase Claypool at 4,800. First look, though, it's pretty gross, guys. Not going to lie. You're going to have to find some really interesting dumpster diving pieces to make things work if you want to fit in everybody you want. Maybe a guy like Toure for Green Bay fits that mold if we get Christian Watson out as well. That's somebody I'm keeping an eye on. I think it's Toure over Watkins. Sammy hasn't shown me anything that I think, hindsight's always 20/20, but we should have seen this one coming, and most people did. So Sammy Watkins, not really a viable receiving weapon for the Packers so far. Other than that, though, keep an eye on some of these New York Giants price tags. We know that Kenny Golladay is trending towards playing. I still do have interest in Wan'Dale Robinson, which I must have missed him. 4,700, that's kind of solid. Again, I wish the volume was a little bit higher, though. Tight end, very interesting position. Travis Kelce, 7,800. Again, I think that's too expensive personally. GPPs only. But you look into this other range now, and you're starting to see that this slate's pretty tough in cash. So I don't think people will have the money to pay for these guys. And And Njoku is probably the first guy that piques my interest if he's healthy. Robert Tunyon's probably where a lot of people go at 3,700. Tyler Higbee, we talked about the play on FanDuel. He's 3,600 there on DraftKings. And that is one of the spots that I think people will gravitate towards. If they don't, they probably will play Cole Kmet at 3,400. I don't mind that. I don't mind Dulcich at 3,400 as well. Evan Engram, like I said before, just needs the volume, and he should be good to go. If we get another week of Foster Moreau, I probably will force myself off of that play to try to get up in this range, but we'll see how that goes there. Nothing really interests me down here. The tight ends for Detroit are kind of all over the place. I know that a few of them scored touchdowns last weekend, and that was more of a last weekend thing. We know that Green Bay is a team that struggles against that position, so we'll see if those plays are back in this week. I don't think I'm going to necessarily try to go that direction. As far as the defense goes, though, we have an interesting spot for pay-up options. We have the Cowboys, Giants, and Raiders up top. This is going to be, again, kind of the same thing that I said earlier. I think people will gravitate towards the Vikings at 2,200 if they know that Josh Allen is not going to play in this game, but seeing as it's Wednesday, we don't really know if that's going to be the case yet. Other interesting streamer options, we have the Steelers at 2,800. Again, like I said, with TJ Watt back. We also have interesting spots for, I think the Cardinals are a solid pick at 2,700. I think the Bears are 3,100 are very solid. And where is Detroit? Did I miss the Lions? There they are. They're 2,900. So not as good of a price tag as FanDuel, but certainly something that we can get behind. Wouldn't be playing anybody else, though. I think it's pretty much Vikings or bust. If Dallas was cheaper, which I knew they wouldn't be, I would have gone pretty much all in on them. But, can't always have nice things. So that's going to do it. First look for FanDuel and DraftKings are going to be uploaded to YouTube, so you guys can listen back to this stuff. And we'll pull highlights for Twitch, so you can kind of get some of my takes through the week here.